What's going on, Winnipeg fans all across the U.S. and Canada? You're reporting the Winnipeg Terminal. I'm your host, Mike D'Andrea, along with Joe Pritchard. And I always ask every week how we're doing. And I feel like that's a very loaded question this week, but I'll ask it anyways. Joe, how we doing?
We're not on a losing streak, so that's a good start, right?
Yeah, a game that could have went either way. It was a 6-game losing streak before yesterday. Of course, we're doing this on Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday this week. A couple things are coming up for tomorrow, so figured it was just best to do this on a Tuesday for today. But man, oh man, it's nice to get the monkey off the back. What are your takeaways from yesterday's game?
Not even so much about the game. It was more about seeing the coaching staff make the realization that they couldn't be locked into what wasn't working. They made some shifts on the first couple lines, got a bonus change with Tyler Toffoli being sick and Cole Perfetti drawing in, and well, that kind of worked out decently if I had to say so myself. But they made some shuffles on the first two lines and are trying to find some chemistry. Too early to tell if the changes they've made are going to work out. But at the same time, they're not locking themselves into one mode of thinking. Like, this is the lines and that's that. Most of the changes they've made this year have been forced upon them either by injuries or acquisitions. In this case, they made some changes because it wasn't working. And it's good to see that they won't let themselves stagnate.
Right. That, I think, was an issue with, and trust me, I really liked Paul Maurice, when he was here. But I think that was the biggest issue is it was always kind of locked in on what we were doing, whether it worked or not. It was kind of just, this is our game plan. We're going to stick to the game plan. But since, Bonus kind of became the bench boss and Arneal, stepping in several times throughout Bonus's tenure for, other various reasons, it's nice to see that, okay, we're on a losing streak. We've lost 6 in a row. What can we do to change to really improve our game? And like I said, it was a hard fought. It wasn't like it was a one-sided game. This one could have went either way. But at the end of the day, goal Perfetti, with 2 goals, being the number one star. That was really nice to see. Like you said, him drawing in with that in the absence of Tyler Toffoli was really nice to see. And then Kyle Connor chipping in with 3 apples too. It was nice. It wasn't like that 6-0 or 6-1 sort of win that you would like to see after a very long losing streak. But, like we said, at the end of the day, it's nice to finally get back into the W column with some very crucial games coming up in a very tight race.
Yeah, and even better that they were able to pull out the win. It didn't look like Laurent Brossoit was on his game last night. So having the team rally around, keep the high danger chances from accumulating really helped as well.
Mm-hmm. And two of the goals from LA were from some very familiar faces too. Of course, Kopitar, that was one, but I'm more or less focused on Arvidsson and Fiala, 2 very familiar faces that we've seen several times before. But it was I don't know. I love to see them get in and wear the Royal Canadian Armed Forces jerseys too. The last one of the year wearing those. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think those are eons above. Remember those aviator jerseys?
Yeah, pass.
I was not a fan of those. I know that some people liked them, but whether you look at this as a hot take or a cold take, I do not like those jerseys whatsoever, and I'm so glad that they don't wear them anymore.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge third jersey guy anyway. I like to stick with, hey, this is your identity, stick with it instead of having like 7 different looks. But at the same time, if you're gonna do it, either pay homage to something or go dramatically different than what you normally wear.
Yeah, this I was thinking about this. Speaking of that, wearing a million different jerseys and stuff. Watching baseball this past week, and this will eventually be a part of our landing segment, with baseball season getting started. But the Marlins, and I want to say Miami wore a different jersey every single game.
Right, but that's a team that hasn't had an identity since 1997. So can you blame them?
Yeah, baseball and basketball, I don't get it with all of these different jerseys that, they wear a different jersey every single game. But
yeah, it's just you have to look at the score bug to tell who's playing anymore.
Seriously though, and well, while we're on this too, if the Jets were to commit to just wearing only a home and an away jersey with no alternate or whatever, would you like the ones that they have now? Would you like these ones, or say like the early '90s and late '80s look for the Jets? What would you like to see them wear if you only had one sort of scheme to pick from?
As much as I like the throwbacks, you have to stick with what's new because you're clearly not the old team. So that's your identity. That's who you've been for a decade and a half. Unless you make a dramatic change to that, stick with it.
I can appreciate that. I personally like the WHA ones even more than the early '90s ones. I still like those ones a lot too, but I do get your point on that, and I do agree with it. But regardless of what we're wearing, let's talk about the losing streak a little bit. We've already kind of talked about coming out of that, but what things kind of stuck out to you, even in the midst of a homestand where we faced a struggling Oilers team? Now, of course, throughout the course of the year, they've been playing some great hockey, but there's been times where they've struggled and end up losing in overtime to them. We have a chance to finally take down an opponent that's really had our number both in the regular season and the playoffs. We lose to them, and then we had a cake game against Ottawa. Can't overcome them. What are your key takeaways from that losing streak? But what do you think they can improve on? And what do you think, if there were any strengths out of that, what would you agree with on that?
They were struggling to figure out who they are anymore. Couldn't, besides the Edmonton game where they rallied from 3-1 down to secure a point, which great, that was better than nothing. They couldn't figure out who was supposed to put the puck in the net. They couldn't figure out how to defend in transition. They couldn't harken back to earlier this season and play lockdown defensively. You gotta have some of those things going for you, and they had none of them.
Do you think that because I've noticed it seems like it's almost more so with Winnipeg than other teams. This is not to take away from other teams, but it seems like every night there's someone else that is getting put on the IL for illness. And do you think that has an effect on chemistry? I would have, especially when they're struggling to find their identity. I would tend to believe that, when you can't seem to get the same bodies out there every night to develop that chemistry, especially with some of the new faces that are in the locker room, I would have to think that has some sort of impact. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it doesn't help. And you got to find things that work. So being able to mix it up a little bit does help, but at the same time, you have to have a line you can rely on. It's been the third line lately, but you'd like it to be your first.
I would have to agree with that, of course. But now we've been talking about the very tight race, and Nashville, they have been breathing down our neck to potentially even drop us into a wild card spot at this point. But if I'm being honest here, I actually kind of like the matchup against Vancouver more than I would like it against Colorado for us. But so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if Nashville overtook us. But I mean, you may still face Colorado anyways, so you got to beat those teams in the postseason. If there was an ideal opponent that you think that that can help them get past the first round, one that you think they'd play really well against, who would you want to see the Jets play in the first round of the playoffs?
And I can't say Chicago, can I?
No. We have to talk about like actual NHL.
We have to be realistic. Right. It would have been better to be higher up, but I mean, once you're in it, you're gonna have to get past Dallas. You're gonna have to get past Colorado anyway, whether it's now or later. And you're gonna have to get past one of Vancouver or Edmonton. So whatever order it is, does it matter if you can't get past any of them?
It's a very good point. And at this point, I think that it's barring a ridiculous collapse, and we've seen that with the Jets, but barring any sort of ridiculous collapse with Dallas, I think that number one in the Central is pretty much a pipe dream at this point. Dallas has 103 points, 75 games played. Winnipeg, 75 games played as well, only at 96 points. Now, it is possible with 7 games left that we may catch Colorado. We do have that Central Division gauntlet coming up. All those games on the road, by the way. And if we take that game against Colorado in regulation, there's a much better chance that we would have at catching them and at least getting home ice, because at this point, it looks like we'd be playing Colorado unless Nashville remains hot, because, again, they are breathing down our neck. 90 points, 74 games played, so they do have a game in hand and 6 points behind us. It'd be really nice to overtake Colorado, though, and get that home ice advantage, because, like we were saying, you are still going to be playing these teams, but it is better to be playing on your home ice unless you were in this recent stretch where you couldn't buy a win if you wanted.
No, and we've been talking since January about how many games at hand the Jets had. They just played them. They were worth nothing in the standings, unfortunately. So lots of games in a compressed time frame. And want to mention that, hey, we're recording Tuesday night. Wednesday, it's also an off night, which is the first time they've had like 2 days between games for a while. So maybe the rest will be a helpful thing as well.
Yeah, last time they had 2 days off in a row. Oh boy, I'm pulling up the schedule here. Looks like the last time was March 6th and 7th, and then that was right before a back-to-back that they had between Seattle and Vancouver, in which case there were 2 shutouts. That's just, we're on the right side of that in Seattle, we're on the wrong side of that in Vancouver. So it's nice that the day my daughter was born, 3-0 shutout.
Always a good sign.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, she turns a month old on Monday, and that's when we're in the middle of this road trip. We go to Minnesota on the 6th. Now, we'd have that off day on Monday, so the day she turns a month, but then we have Nashville, Dallas, and Colorado every other day. So I'm going to have to, I'm not superstitious or anything, but
just a little.
It's funny, like in life and a lot of things, I always say like, I don't believe in luck, chance, or coincidence or anything. But when it comes to sports, and I feel like 99% of sports fans are like that, where I am very superstitious. I have to wear the same jersey, whether it's, I'm kind of weird like this. When I watch the Jets, if they're playing at home, I wear a road jersey. And if they're playing on the road, I wear a home jersey. Now, when they're going on losing streaks like this, I switch it up. So maybe, just maybe, on Thursday, I'll wear a home jersey.
So we've solved the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, the Jets, of course, know what I'm wearing. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, good to know. Okay, that's the end of our show. Good night.
Yep. God, if only it was that easy, wasn't it?
Right.
Oh. Now, let's talk a little bit about this upcoming trip. Now, normally we just kind of go into what'll take us through next week's show, but I want to expand a little bit beyond that, just because these are some very crucial games that we have coming up. So now Calgary, they're not playing for as much, of course, that game on Thursday, but really hoping that after this big win that we had, we can finally kind of move forward from this and ultimately, light the world on fire like we did a few weeks ago into the playoffs, because that's where we're really going to need to get that momentum. But our big guys, Sean Monahan, 3 goals in the last 5 games. Kyle Connor, 5 assists in the last 5 games, also with 5 points. And Nazem Kadri for Calgary, 3 assists in the last 5 games and 4 points. So again, this is still, it's Calgary. They don't have much to play for, but they do have our number this year. Now, keep in mind, both games that we've played against them so far have been in Calgary. Each time we did score 3. October 11th, we lost 5-3, and February 19th, you remember that game as well as I do, where the wheels fell off. We lost 6-3. So what are your thoughts for this upcoming game? What do you think we can improve upon off of, and don't say everything, because I know that that's the cop-out answer, but what do you think is going to be the key factor in this upcoming game, Joe?
I'd like to see the first line dominate for once. It feels like they haven't. Whoever's on the first line, it's a Shifley line, and we've had people in and out. Connor's been on it for the most part. Viardi's there when he's healthy. Ehlers checks in every so often. Iafalo's even been there for fill-in for a time or two. But the first line seems to be being dominated by other teams' first lines lately, and I'd like to see that reverse.
Biggest thing I'd like to see is, and we have shown signs of life in it, but I still want to see improvement on special teams, especially as of late. But
yeah, there was another huge stretch of no power play goals at all. It's like, oh, I thought we solved that problem.
Yeah, it's kind of been the last couple of weeks where, aside from this last stretch, once we've solved one problem, another starts to falter, but it's not faltering enough that we get on a streak like we did the last 7 games, even though we did come out with the dub this last one. But now it seems like everything's kind of been falling apart. One thing that I think we can at least get a little bit of confidence on, especially when you're struggling, you don't necessarily want to take more penalties, but Calgary's power play has been really struggling too. So if we do if we do take a few penalties, maybe we can get that penalty kill going, because that's also kind of struggled a little bit. 77%, still at 25th in the league, but Calgary's power play is worse than ours. 16% puts them at 28th in the league. Now their penalty kill is pretty good, actually. I wouldn't say top 5. They are 7th in the league, but still 82%. That's going to be a tough one to get our power play going. But if we can at least get one aspect of special teams going, maybe that can sort of light the fire for other aspects of our play, 5-on-5 or even the power play.
Yeah, and it might just take a dirty goal to get the power play going too.
That's what we've been saying last week too. Like, we're looking for that pretty goal. We just need to get those garbage goals. Just throw pucks at net at this point. That's the big thing. And Calgary has been struggling lately as well in goaltending and just in general too. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They have, of course, won their last game, but we're also 4-5-1 in our last 10. So we're not doing much better.
No. And when we talked about that last week, I was thinking more 5-on-5, but it should definitely apply to the power play as well.
Oh, absolutely. If anything, I would like to see that more on the power play for how much we've struggled on it. Just that's where you need to throw more pucks on net. That's where you can get those deflections. And sure, you can say that too, as long as you have the traffic in front of the net. Just let your blue liners slap it, and maybe we can get a pinball goal, something that we can find the back of the net. That's the big thing. That the first line kind of needs to set the example. It's nice that our third line's been pretty consistent, but this time of the year, it's April 2nd today. You need all 4 lines gelling.
And that's something that hasn't been as solid. What's weird is that they were playing their best hockey without one of their best players. When Kyle Connor was out, the Jets played their best hockey of the season. I'm not suggesting I want to see Kyle Connor out of the lineup. It's just I wonder if some of the combinations that were in play then are the best setup, because the second line is going to be, and putting Connor on the second line with Monahan makes perfect sense because we didn't have Monahan at that point. The first and third lines being what they were might end up working out to Winnipeg's advantage if those are the two best combos they could put in those spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and looking a little bit further ahead, this is a game that we've debated going to in Minnesota on April 6th, 3 p.m. We got a little matinee going, Saturday matinee against Minnesota Wild. Their top players as the last 5 games, or at least players to watch: Kirill Kaprizov, Kirill the Thrill, 2 goals in the last 5 games, 6 points in the last 5 games as well. So he's been playing some pretty good hockey. I mean, it's Kirill Kaprizov, so that's just, the status quo for him. But Matt Boldy, 5 assists in the last 5 games too. Now, Wild have been playing better than we have, and this year, I want to say it's usually the opposite. Usually Minnesota has our number, but this year we've been taking it to them. 4-2 win on December 30th. We had that back-to-back, of course, on New Year's Eve in Minnesota. 3-2 victory, and February 20th, 6-3 victory. So what are your thoughts, and who do you think is going to kind of be that X factor in Minnesota? Because this kicked that Central Division.
Yeah, they have nothing to play for at this point. This is a team that the Jets should hammer in that scenario. And they have been playing well. So that leads me to believe that this is going to be a rough one, and I'll want to cover my eyes with both hands. It's just, It seems like it lines up perfectly, when that scares the crap out of me.
And it's those teams that don't really have anything to play for when you're playing for your life, essentially. Sure, we didn't clinch a playoff spot yet, but I think it's
there.
A good chance that we're there now, not mathematically, but realistically. But when those teams that are basically out of the race have nothing to play for, and you're playing for positioning, that's a tough one, because you could get into the mindset like, oh yeah, we've pretty much punched our ticket at this point. And Wild, of course, ever since that series a few years ago, that rivalry really heated up. And if you can play spoiler to one of your biggest foes, I mean, that's only going to make Minnesota play harder.
And it's even going to be harder because they all they want to do is make a mess of what you got going. They might not even be thinking at this point, hey, how can we win this game? It's like, hey, how can we mess with our rivals?
Mm-hmm. And Marc-Andre Fleury, who wants to stay in Minnesota to end his career for family reasons, which I can appreciate. .899 save percentage, .285 goals against average at 16-12-5 on the year. And Gustafsson, 19-16-4, 304 goals against, 900 save percentage. Whereas Hellebuck, 32-19-4 on the year, 243 goals against, 919 save percentage. And Brossoit, who did have a little bit of a struggle recently, still 13-5-2, 210 goals against, 925 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. So with a recent struggle, I mean, those are still stellar.
Fantastic numbers, yeah.
So I love what we've got going. We've been saying that Brossoit could be a starter on a lot of other teams, but the fact
Minnesota being one of them.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, prime Fleury, I would argue, but
yeah, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, he's over the hill, and I love the Flower. I don't care. He's never played on a team that I like, but he's got that personality that you just can't beat.
Yeah, no arguments from this corner on that.
All right, now the big one against Nashville. I think if we lose this one, we could really struggle in those standings, and Nashville may very well overtake us, and we may fall to a wild card spot. But if we win, I think that we pretty much have at least third place locked down. So this is going to be a very big game coming up with Forsberg, 5 goals in the last 5 games, 5 assists. He's got 10 points in the last 5 games, averaging 2 points a game. that's that's going to be your X factor. But Saros also has some pretty good stats himself at 32, 22, and 4, 283 goals against, 906 save percentage, got 3 shutouts on the year. Lankin at 10, 5, and 0, 303 goals against, 902 save percentage with 1 shutout on the year. And I always think that I say shootout, but I mean to say shutout if I say that. Nashville riding a 2-game losing streak, 7-2-1 though, so they've been playing some great hockey as of late, really lighting the world on fire aside from the last 2 games. And of course, again for us, 4-5-1. Season series, Nashville's got us 2-1. First one coming on November 9th, Winnipeg 6-3. November 26th, Nashville 3-2, and on March 13th, Nashville 4-2. What are your thoughts for the game against Nashville? Of course, I kind of mentioned the positioning sequence that could be at hand here, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if any game's going to feel like the playoffs, it's going to be that one. Both teams are going to have everything to play for yet. I mean, unless Winnipeg wins a couple and Nashville loses a couple and the spread is now all of a sudden 8 points. I don't see that happening, but that's still on the table. I do also want to make mention Nashville's got a bright future because Milwaukee in the AHL has been fantastic this year. So something that I don't usually do, but I didn't like it seeing a Milwaukee team having success. That's rather unusual for me, but that's where we're at. Yeah, it's good. We're going to find out who these Jets are in this game.
Yeah, I think that one is bigger than the Dallas game. That one's obviously a very big game as well, but
right, like Dallas might still be trying to keep Colorado off of their backs, but by then they might have clinched too. So,
very possible. But then, depending on how we play and how Colorado plays, that could be a very big game too, and have those same ramifications as far as positioning is concerned. If Colorado falters a little bit or even plays subpar, and we take the first couple games of this upcoming stretch where we actually do have some rest, which is kind of nice to have rest going into the playoffs. I mean, this could be fighting for home ice advantage in the first round.
Yep. It's there if the situation if the situation goes well for Winnipeg, there's chances to be had, but they can't go 4-5-1 in this next stretch and expect there to be opportunity.
Right, they're going to need this rest. We mentioned earlier we have today and tomorrow off, and we have Calgary Thursday, off Friday, in Minnesota on Saturday, and then we have 2 days off again. And then we have a stretch of 3 games in 5 days and then 2 more days off. So it's kind of nice that scheduling's kind of worked out that way after we've had a pretty busy stretch as of late. Again, for the last month, essentially, we've been doing a game every other day or back to back. So,
and it might wear you down too with that kind of schedule.
Yeah, so there's pluses and minuses, but I think that if we can get that illness bug out of the locker room that seems to be, getting spread around every couple of games where someone's out for an illness, I think the weather going up and down doesn't really help either. But
you would be the expert on that. I'll let you take that one.
I'm still on paternity leave for another couple of weeks. So. But yeah, I think that then we have that 2 Pacific teams to round out the season in Seattle and Vancouver, and at that point, again, those are going to be tough games, especially Vancouver. But the playoff picture is set at that point, barring any ties that are possible, of course. But I think with 1 game left against the Pacific leading Canucks, I think that. That will pretty much be set, and maybe we have another date with Vancouver later on in the playoffs.
Might be a good opportunity to set the tone.
I would have to agree with that, and it's kind of nice, Western Canada really representing in the playoff picture this year thus far. Of course, again, Calgary, not really much to play for, but Winnipeg third in the Central, Edmonton second in the Pacific, Vancouver first in the Pacific. So maybe this could be the year. First time since what, 93?
Could be. And my CFL brain saying, yeah, I like the fact that Calgary and Saskatchewan aren't included in this discussion.
I did see something yesterday, and I know this had to have been an April Fool's thing, but it was like, you ever see those posts on April Fool's Day that are jokes, but actually would make sense?
The ones that at least make you go, oh, wait, it's the first. Never mind.
Yeah. I saw something that Chase Claypool from Abbotsford talking, again, this is April Fool's. Let me just say this. Chase Claypool talking to BC and Saskatchewan to help their receiving core.
Oh, my friends at the Piffles podcast went one further and had him signed already. So.
Oh, yeah. It's like Ayuk to the Steelers, and what else? Kittle to the Jaguars.
Yeah, that was a day for tomfoolery on the internet. But it's like the one day of the year that everybody actually questions what they see on the internet, which, maybe every day should be like that.
I was just about to say every single day should be like that. But I called this, though. I was so happy that I called this when, Russell Wilson came to Pittsburgh. I was like, okay, this could be smoke and mirrors. Maybe they still want to get Justin Fields. And I don't know what they would do with Pickett at that point. Maybe have Fields and Pickett battle it out for the number 2 spot. And then I saw Pickett traded to Philly. So I was like, oh, that's Justin Fields is definitely coming to Pittsburgh. And what was it, a week later, he gets traded to Pittsburgh for a 6th-round pick, conditional. If he plays 51% of the snaps, then 4th round goes to Chicago. But I'm telling you, Omar Khan has a way of fleecing Ryan Poles, and I don't know what it is. He likes to toy with the guy, I guess.
Yeah, can't say I hate seeing Chicago on the wrong side of a trade.
I think I was just about to say, like, I think that you would appreciate that more than anyone. And I don't know why, like, Poles likes to still do deals with Khan, because he loves to fleece him. I mean, going back to the Chase Claypool conversation, if we talk about who the Steelers drafted with the pick that they got a 2nd-round pick when they traded Chase Claypool to Chicago. They got Joey Porter Jr. with that pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
One of the best rookie corners in the game. And I cannot wait to see what he does in years to come.
Yeah, and speaking of juniors and young people, we were talking before the show about how our respective baseball teams were having a nice start to the season. One of the Brewers' top prospects, Tyler Black, Rod Black's son.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that he was in the Brewers system.
Yep, he's there, and he's knocking on the door.
Oh, he's in AAA now?
Yeah, or close. Yeah, he even had some spring training appearances. So, and not just because it was. Let's take a look at him.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm excited. Jared Jones. I think we can pretty much safely say we're going into our landing segment, unless there's any other Jets or Bombers news you wanted to touch on, because I was about to go off on a tangent for the Pirates.
Nope. We're still kind of in the dead season of CFL time. Combine happened. The draft will come up soon. Then, as soon as the draft happens, we're off and running with previews, I'm sure. But
for sure.
Right now, we can let our CFL brains rest. I mean, besides my wardrobe, because that's every week.
I was going to say, we have our specialties where my wheelhouse is hockey, your wheelhouse is football, and we, of course, coordinate for that. But now, going back to my little rant that I had about the Pirates, is they suck. And I'm saying this, they're 5-0, but, like, historically, since I've been alive, they've been a very, 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 very bad franchise. And I don't think I'm, breaking any news when I say that. And one of the things that I feel like, growing up, aside from like AJ Burnett and Francisco Liriano, when they had a really good 1-2 punch in the mid 2010s, aside from that, I can only name a couple great starting pitchers that they had. One is Charlie Morton, which I don't know why they got rid of him, but that's neither here nor there.
Because they're the Pirates. Carry on.
Yes, exactly. Chris Benson. Yes, I'm going way back into the archives here. And Paul Maholm. And
I think Oliver Perez had a year or two where he was pretty much.
He had one good year, yeah. But I'll think about all the years, and we're going back. I named Chris Benson for crying out loud. So we're going back to the late 90s, early 2000s here. And now they actually have my discernible point out of this is they actually have several pitchers now that can touch triple digits. They had Jared Jones, who first start in the majors, first appearance, strikes out 10, which last Pirates player to do that in their first start was Tim Wakefield.
Slightly different style of pitcher, mind you.
Very, very different. Jones can touch triple digits, and Tim Wakefield could touch 55 with that.
Right. He could touch triple digits, but only if you counted two of his pitches at a time.
Exactly, yeah. And they also have Paul Skeens that's knocking on the door. I have a feeling if the Pirates are still competitive in July, he'll probably, or even June maybe, he'll probably make his way up by then. And they also have Aroldis Chapman, who had the save last night. I don't care if he's in his mid upper 30s. Dude can still touch triple digits. So it's nice to see the Pirates actually have good pitching. And, they actually have a pretty decent rotation that they have right now. And I can't wait to see Skeens come up and see where the Pirates can do. And their bats haven't been an issue this year either. Heck, they just put up 8 yesterday. So, and they put up 9 against Miami. So, yeah, they've put up a lot of runs this year in 5 games.
Yep. I'm glad you're taking advantage of talking positively about the Pirates because you won't have many more chances to do that this year, I'm sure.
Listen. I know, I know you're trying because you're a Brewers fan. You're trying to, roast the Pirates, but I think I've roasted them more than, the Reds fans or Brewers fans or Cubs fans, just because, lifelong basement dwellers for me.
Yeah, I think Reds fans are like too shell shocked to even cut on the Pirates right now because aren't they in the same boat for the last decade too?
Pretty much, yeah. The last time that both teams were good was 2013, and I remember the Cueto chant where drops the ball, very next pitch, Russell Martin cranks it.
That was a couple of in that frame. The Brewers had a couple of nice September collapses to help those things happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss the mid 2010s Pirates and where they had oh my gosh, they had Marlon Byrd, they had Russell Martin, they had, like I said, Francisco Liriano, they had Justin Morneau one of those years, they had Francisco Cervelli, Andrew McCutchen, Starling Marte. Man, they had a good team. But this year, actually, I like their lineup that they have. They still have some pretty young guys for the most part, but they do have a good mix of some veterans, which some you may say are over the hill. Not to rip on McCutchen because that guy is my favorite player and human being. But he's not in his 20s anymore, of course. So he's not the MVP McCutchen, but he's a clubhouse leader.
Still useful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Sorry, I've been hogging all the landing with the Pirates. Let's hear about your Brewers because they're doing pretty well too.
Well, what little I've actually noticed so far, because it's weird after COVID, we just kind of like fell off the wagon for a while. But Riz Hoskins seems to be pissing off the Mets, so I can't complain about that. A couple of young, talented outfielders for the Brewers too, like Jackson Churrio's like the 5th youngest opening day guy, and then like 2 of the others were Robin Yount and Robin Yount. Like he went 18 and 19. So yeah, talent there though. Pitching's going to be interesting because they traded Corbin Burns, and Brandon Woodruff's gone for a whole year, but see what they got left.
Yeah. Is Woodruff still under contract with the Brewers?
He actually re-signed for 2 years, so this year
right.
plus next year. So the Brewers will get something out of that instead of just we'll see you in December. Is your arm any better?
Yeah, right. I love that.
They seem to be optimistic about it though, so I'll be optimistic too.
That's good, and I love that Hoskins had no love lost with the Mets either.
No, it was nice to have something to fire the festivities up right away because opening day got rained out, so might as well let's just start the season on fire. Why not?
Actually, they're playing, or their game might be over now, but today is their home opener, isn't it? Or yeah, they're at home. That's right.
Yeah, they had a fancy new parking thing going on where it was all electronic, and of course that just completely crapped the bed like everybody was predicting.
There you go. They won 3-2. They're still undefeated.
Sweet, and beat the Twins.
Yeah.
It's weird. I have absolute like the Twins. I'm fine with. Like
you can't hate
Brewers
the Twins.
The Brewers were even in a division with them for a couple years, but both teams are horrible, so it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just I save the don't like Minnesota teams for the Vikings and the Wild. So for some reason the Twins get a free pass.
And we all hate the Wild on this podcast. Hopefully everybody listening hates them. And if you're a Wild fan, I'm sorry, you come to the wrong place.
Yeah. Not going to be over the top mean about it because why would we be? You're the Wild. Nothing to.
That's a good
you already
point.
Have a pretty. You already have a pretty awful existence as a Wild fan. Believe me, I tried the hat on for a year or two, and it's like, nope, that don't fit.
The good old Minnesota mild.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Minnesota mid. That explains them.
I think we hit the high points.
I think so.
Or as far as the Wild go, there really aren't any high points. So
no, but I will at least say I do like the Excel Center, and I like the Wild fans. There's only been one time where I've had a bad experience with a Wild fan, but for the most part, I can happily wear my Jets jersey and go to a game, and sure, you'll get your jeers, but it's all in good fun, except for one drunk guy. There's a lot of words I want to use, but they're not exactly appropriate for this podcast, where he told me to go back to Winnipeg, and I told him I live in St. Cloud.
No, that's usually what happens when I'm walking out of a stadium wearing the wrong jersey. It's like, go, you got a long drive back home. Actually, a lot longer than you think. That usually happens in Saskatchewan or Hamilton. So,
what's funny was I went. God, when was this? A couple years ago. I want to say it was 2019, maybe. I went to a game in Winnipeg where we were playing the Wild, and anyways, was talking. There were Wild fans that were in the seats next to me, and I was BSing and everything, and didn't tell them where the conversation I guess never came up, but didn't tell them where I lived because at the time I lived in St. Cloud, and anyways, I said something to them towards the end of the game. I was like, oh, so how long's your drive home? Where you guys live? And they said they were in Albertville. which right off of I-94 by St. Michael, of course. And anyways, then they said something like, yeah, we got a long drive home. And I said, me too. And they were like, where are you going? Like, aren't you from here? I was like, nope, I'm from St. Cloud. And they were like, oh my, like, and they were like shocked that I was a half hour away from them. So should have got their numbers. Could have went to another game in Winnipeg.
Could have a nice little hometown rivalry.
Yeah, I could have converted them into Jets fans. Showed them the ropes, show them the light.
Yeah, that might be a hard sell, but gotta try, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Not everybody has to cheer on a good team.
Oh, well. Fingers crossed, we're still a good team here.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Oh, well, I think that we've pretty much beat this dead horse unless you've got anything else to add.
No, I think we've already got a piling on penalty for us today. So let's just, I think we're good there.
I think so too. So, yep, this is the Winnipeg Terminal. We are clear for landing for the dub. Go Jets, go.